Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. If I seem tired, it's because I am. I was up till 4 a.m. last night watching the concert for FanFest, and then on top of that, your boy got jab number 2 done today. So, if I'm a little bit out of commission for the next day or so, I won't be surprised. I'm drinking my liquids. I've already been through a bottle of water. I got like one of those vitamin water electrolyte things. I've got coffee, but this is really for me and not for the jab itself. But, you know, whatever I could get while I was out, I got. So that's where I'm at right now. I'll be doing all sorts of videos about individual bits of FanFest, chopping up maybe some highlights of some of the moments from the State of the Realms, which are all live reactions. So there's like kind of those awkward silences. And it's going to be busy. And then 5.55 is coming. Plus, we're planning a couple other things over on Twitch, which I might also translate to YouTube series as well, to keep us occupied over the next several months. And then next month, there's also a ton of other stuff I'm going to be covering. PSO2, Final Fantasy VII, the PS5 version with the episode intermission, and more stuff from that point on as well. So let's get to this before any sort of fatigue or anything kicks in. It wouldn't kick in that quick, but you know what? I'm better safe than sorry. Thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon for supporting through thick and thin. There's not really a super benefit or any benefit at all. The supporting over there just supports the YouTube channel, so we can keep doing what we're doing more consistently. Thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Janova, and Kurenai Oni, who have gone above and beyond. Thank you to all of our patrons. And of course, thank you to you for tuning in and hopefully asking some good questions below the video. So let's go see what the questions were from last week's video, and then I can go chill and unwind. Question number 1, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Good morning, afternoon, evening, Happy. Hope you are doing swell. I hope the same for you. Just a quick question. What are you most looking forward to next expansion? Are you looking forward to the new classes, story? And then for me personally, I'm looking forward to see where we'll be taking the story. So this question is always kind of loaded because there's never one thing. I'm fortunately somebody who tries not to only enjoy a few select things in Final Fantasy XIV. While there's activities like crafting and gathering that I might not be, you know, all too enthusiastic about whenever they're talking about new features or updating features that I already enjoy, I tend to stay pretty involved in all of them. So even if it's something that's not necessarily my expertise wheelhouse, I can look forward to it. So this question is kind of too loaded for me to answer. When you're in the position that I'm in, it's really just new. Whether it's new things to try out and judge and see how they actually worked out or turned out, or if it's something new entirely, or something new that I already enjoyed, like a new Savage encounter, a new Ultimate, a new Extreme Trial. So honestly, there's not a thing I don't look forward to. There's just things I'm not as enthusiastic about, like crafting and gathering. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. Hi. Quick one. Sure. During FanFest, Yoshida kept joking about Soken singing getting better in the trailer, with Soken doing the vocals in the teaser. So yes, in the original teaser trailer, Soken was doing the vocals, the kind of muffled sounds that you were hearing. However, Sam Carter of the Architects did indeed do the full trailer for the male vocals. So that was the joke, was that how much better his singing got, but it was actually just, you know, a professional who has a storied history of providing some great vocals for tracks. So that's all that was. Hashtag Mr. Happy Tuesday. What? Just because you didn't even ask this on a Tuesday. That just doesn't make any sense. This video is always on a Monday. I don't know what you were going for here. Hey, Haps, hope your week has been going well, and the keynote and live letter were exciting, since this was asked before. Quick question. What's left on your list of tasks to finish in game before Endwalker drops? Well, I have finished my ocean fishing title, World Class Troller. I do plan to do a follow-up video, since people have been asking me for advice on ways that I approach the fishing, since my average fishing boat was, anywhere from, 12 to 14K, which really helps speed that process along. Triple Triad cards are next on the list. Whether I get all of them is questionable, because the tournaments are very likely to be a big stopping point for me. And that's only because we really don't know what the reward is. I have a feeling it's going to be something that I really want, and thus I'll feel extra motivated to work on the Triple Triad cards. I'm going to only take it a little easy on that until we see what the reward is, but it's only going to be a little bit more than a week before we find out. So getting a little bit of a jump start on it's probably a good idea. Other than that, it's just going to be, making sure I'm done with the story, done with Bozja. And one big thing I want to do, especially once data center travel is more detailed and we know what the restrictions are, I'd like to do data center hopping and do a system, or do a series, I should say, where it's a system on Twitch, a series on YouTube, where I actually help people with their first times through queues, like just, transfer to, Europe or transfer to Crystal or something and queue in as a healer or a tank with them. Even if they're the free trial, as long as I'm the party leader, I can actually still assist them with this. So that's actually a big task that I want to undertake, and then we can present some of those experiences and things that outlooks that I see or misunderstandings that people have, and post those to YouTube without, as a more informative series, not as an inflammatory series to like anyone who might do or say dumb things during their learning processes in the early days of actually playing Final Fantasy. So that's actually probably the biggest thing that I want to take on leading up to Endwalker. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, guy. Hello. What is the Mr. Happy world first and for Final Fantasy 14? So as far as I know, there's only 2 things that I actually have world... Oh, well, there's a third thing, but that's more of a joke. So thing number 1 would be Titan Hard Mode back in A Realm Reborn. We did it with like 3 healers because we basically barely had the item level from 1.0. We were all legacy players, and so we ended up just tossing 3 healers in there, and the fight was like way, way too long. So that's about all I can reasonably think of would be Titan Hard Mode. I was also part of the Baltessian Arsenal World First team, the 56 players that were involved in that, and that was an absolutely exhilarating experience. But most of my other experiences range from usually top 6 to top 10. One of my favorite accomplishments that we had was defeating A3 Savage, Living Liquid on Savage, before there were Tombstone weapons available, which put us at World 6th. We were almost World 3rd on that, but we had a bit of a problem on that Saturday that led to us not beating it again until Monday night, like an hour before the maintenance was even going to occur. So that was probably my highlight, even though it wasn't a world first, just because of the difficulty of doing it without the weapons, how close we were without the weapons, and how easy we knew it would be once we did get those weapons. So that was a big one. The only other thing I could think of that could possibly be world first, the second the servers came up in 2.55 with the gold saucer, I went to the mini cactpot and I got 10,000 immediately. It was my very first mini cactpot was a 10,000. So maybe world first on that, but I don't really know. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps, how are you? I hope you're doing great. I hope you're doing good as well. Hello, hello. My question is, what do you recommend for people who want to create content online, and what advice would you give for beginners? I'll say this question, I feel like every answer to it, no matter who you ask, starts to sound really generic just because there really is no formula for something like this. The reason why almost any of us start creating content is not because we think, oh, our YouTube channel is going to get, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of views. We don't do it because, oh, this is how I want to earn my living. Most of us kind of just stumble into those parts of it when we realize that people do enjoy what we make. It's about just wanting a desire to make something in the first place. And that needs to be the driving principle behind everything. If you need a creative outlet, if you're feeling like content creation can be a creative outlet for you that both helps you, just express yourself or lets you do something you've always wanted to do, then that's really the most important thing. And if that's not it, and you're just someone who really doesn't like any effort, any effort or any doing, I guess, anything at all with it, then it loses a lot of its passion. And I think people can feel that. I think that you end up feeling that as well when you're creating it, that it's like something you're just kind of making yourself do. So that's definitely going to be high on my list of things. It's just, you just got to want to do it. And as long as it's something you genuinely want to do, then that should be it. That's the formula right there. That's as far as it really goes. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, thanks for the response to my question last week. No problem. Hope you're doing great and or well once more. Thank you, and I hope the same for you. My question for this week is a short one. The music you used at the beginning of State of the Realm, the one you used at the end of Mr. Happy Mondays, where'd you get them? Where are they created for you? I've always been curious as to the origin, as they are really soothing. So the majority of my tracks I actually purchase commercial licenses for over at Purple, I think it's Purple People Eaters is the name of the website that produces a lot of very ambient tracks. Moonrise is one that I use from them and have used for quite some time. That's the very soothing kind of nighttime track that you hear behind most of my videos when I just want to talk about something. However, the beginning of State of the Realm is actually an individual named Koajinx. This actually goes back to my origins with content creation. Back before when I was working in New York City as tech support for inside the company itself, like for anyone in the company who had like a computer issue or whatnot. I started to get heavily involved in charity work through One Athene Wins for Gaming for Good. Now, whether or not you know who Athene Wins is, it's been a tumultuous thing that people have constantly gone up and down with because of his constant involvement in charity work. I've had nothing but respect for him and the people around him. I made some great friends through Athene, and the things that he's done for me are really, really big. I mean, he's really the pushing point that got me super encouraged to do content creation, and actually why I wish I could do more charity work than I do right now. It just hasn't been quite possible with life circumstances to do nearly as much as I would have liked to have done. So between him and Mel, I mean, quite frankly, I don't think I'd be here without the help from both of them. So during that time when we were doing overnight charity streams for that, for Gaming for Good, I met somebody who was an aspiring DJ named Khuja. Now, I think he's largely moved on from that dream of, producing music and EDM tracks and stuff like that. But some of his early tracks, I asked him, hey, would it be cool if I use some of your music in like my intros or like for this or for that? And he said, yeah, dude, I don't really care. I kind of almost wish that he had continued, because I'd love to give the man some money for all the times I've used this track, because I only just asked him and he said yes. So I'm not sure where he really stands on any of that right now, but I will say this: always offer to pay, and always be willing to pay for any music or anything that you're actually trying to use. While there are open domain things and stuff that is protected under fair use and whatnot, there's a lot of people who work really hard on a lot of different things, and showing your appreciation to any form of art, whether it be a commission or music, should definitely be at the top of your list when you're doing any of those things for content creation. But fortunately, you can also just find Khuja's tracks, the few that he made before he really just said, okay, this isn't really going to be a thing for me in the future, is it? You can find those usually on YouTube. Khujainx, I believe, is the name. And then otherwise, the Purple People Eaters thing is where most of my other ambient tracks end up coming from. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm hopefully going to be doing all right after the shots, to be honest. Just finishing up Bloomage and used a bunch of your guides. Thanks for those. No problem. I'm finishing it up, and I wanted to get your opinion on the state of Bloomage and limited jobs as a whole. Where would you like them to take this in the future? Expansions, patches, etc. Keep doing what you're doing. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you. So I think that what they tried was noble. I don't think it's panned out in a way that shows me much of a future for limited jobs. Outside of more gimmicky side quest style stuff, which I think was always the point. Bloomage seems like it largely didn't know what it wanted to be, but they just knew they wanted to make Bloomage. The Carnival is a fine idea. Whenever I need seals, I absolutely go and do it. Any opportunity I can use to actually use Bloomages, for example, most of the Moogle Tombstone events, Ornvale is on the list, just not the current one. So I do 4 Bloomages, and we just truck through it in like 3.5 minutes, and I farm that out until I have everything that I need. Sometimes it's fun to do trials and stuff on Bloomage. Basic Instinct, especially in the most recent patch, made soloing on it way more interesting and way more fun, and way more beginner friendly since Basic Instinct is a relatively low level spell for anyone looking to learn spells from the earlier dungeons. So they've done a lot of things with it, but the problem is the things they haven't done. They've restricted it from doing ultimates, which I know they were worried about like invalidating the challenge, but all the people I know who were ultimate raiders wanted to do Bloomage ultimate, so it's almost kind of like it's weird in a sense. Not being able to do things like Palace of the Dead. I would love it if we had like a Bloomage Palace of the Dead where you start on the first floor and you only have water cannon and you have to learn your spells as you climb Palace of the Dead. But again, I think they're worried about the idea of invalidating certain achievements because they don't have a system in place to separate, oh, I'm doing this as a Bloomage versus I'm not doing this at all. So like they can make it so they can check, oh, do you have like all Bloomages, whatnot, but they can't make something not occur, like an achievement not occur, like Necromancer and Ultimate Clear, just because you have Bloomages. So I think that's actually kept them at bay more than they really should have been. So I personally don't see a future for limited jobs. I've enjoyed my time with Bloomage. I will enjoy the remaining time with the next update that we'll get, whenever that may be. But whether or not we ever see anything else with it, I really don't think we will. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello. Hope you are well. Hope the same for you. Quick question. Does Elder Primal mean anything other than old? I ask because Odin and Bahamut are both referred to as such, but I'm pretty sure there's a power difference there, unless Zantetsuken hasn't found the right person. I'm waiting for Xenos to get his hands on that sword since Stormblade. That would not be good. So the thing about Zantetsuken is that the Zantetsuken itself is the Primal. Odin is not the Primal. That was a common misconception until patch 2.5 where it was clarified, and it was further clarified in the Eureka series where we basically discovered that the Zantetsuken was a weapon crafted by Eureka and given to this old warrior from the Third Astral Era to defend their homeland from the Allagans, which obviously didn't really work out at all. But Elder Primal, no, really doesn't mean anything other than old. It's why it's a term that's been largely abandoned in the more recent times, because Elder Primal it doesn't mean anything. Technically, Sephiroth, Sophia, and Zervan are all Elder Primals, or icons, you know. So the only thing is that when a Primal has been sustained for that period of time, there is, of course, the concern about power. Bahamut, for example, being as powerful as he was because of all the years of just anger and having his worshippers kind of forced to, sustain him. He didn't come out of Dalamud weaker. He came out of Dalamud even stronger than when he went in there. He just couldn't break the prison in the first place. So whether or not that's true for Odin, given that the Zantetsuken itself is the primal, leads a lot of question, because he really basically just picks up a new worshipper every time somebody defeats it and then tries to pick it up. So whether or not that's fed into the Zantetsuken getting stronger over time, or if it just gives it a vessel with which to become Odin, is really a question I don't think we have a solid answer for about Eureka's weapons, but it's a term that's been largely abandoned for a reason. It just doesn't really have any gravitas anymore. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, how you doing? No hello, but at least a how you doing. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Food question. You post a lot of cooking on your Twitter and all looks really good. Have you learned cooking for yourself as a hobby, or did someone teach you? And I would love to see a cooking video or stream from you. Honestly, gotta say, your fish dishes made me drool every time. Maybe attempt a dish from the 14 Cafe. So I actually have posted 2 dishes from the 14 Cafe. I'm not really good at the whole decoration part, so just putting the components together was really the only thing I could do. And even then, my croquets weren't shaped correct. I just kind of made balls out of them instead of flattening them out, so they looked a lot more like the images themselves. But hey, at the very least, it was, just delicious. So that's all that mattered. So I grew up in a family. My uncle actually is a chef, trained and runs his own kitchens even still to this day. And so that was really my primary food, I guess, exposure. My family otherwise had restaurant tours. My father was a restaurateur during the early years of my life. So I was often in the kitchen in his establishment, and I would see them work. But really, other than that, I just learned as a hobby for the most part, because I wasn't really good at it until very, very recently. I could cook for myself most of the time, but I'm not really a super picky eater. So it's really only been in the last several months where I've decided, I want to try some things, and then that just kind of spiraled out of control to trying a lot of new things. It's meant that I've used meal services just to learn like new types of foods and like how different sauces are put together and whatnot, and then attempting things on my own. Like I did, scallops in a garlic butter sauce over roasted sliced potatoes. That was a really simple thing to do, but I can also level that up in another way with something like between the, that's what the sauce poured over, but I could also do something like a little creamy in between the scallop and the potato as well to give it a little bit more cohesion, for example. And learning those things has really been the big thing. I also got an air fryer, which has been a testing ground for me sometimes. I'm going to be testing something else in it probably in the next day or two. But otherwise, just learning to cook through various other means has been a thing. Like the croquets fry, I never really deep fry anything. Not that takes a whole lot of skill. You just have to understand the cooking times for that. But it still is something I didn't have any confidence doing before making the croquets, or putting together the honey toast dessert from the Eorzea Cafe. How those components work together and the timings of it all, and understanding seasoning more properly, like salt and pepper. Like I was super an under seasoner when it came to cooking, because I would just salt and pepper everything after it was done. That's how I grew up in my household. So it's really just been about all of those things, picking up techniques, watching YouTube videos, reading about certain things, looking at articles, looking at Twitter, because I got a lot of chefs on my Twitter feed, some friends of mine that post some crazy good stuff that makes me want to try. Some of those fish dishes were stuff that my friends posted, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. And they were like, I'm proud of you. And I'm like, thank you, Andy. That's it. I got followed by Chef Mike, the ex-McDonald's lead chef. I don't remember the exact position. And that was, I've enjoyed his content for years. That was actually kind of cool for me. So that's it. It's just something I wanted to do, and I'm really glad I've been doing it, because it's been a creative outlet for me when I'm not really knowing what to do on YouTube, just to get my brain going and to get my mind moving in any sort of way. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Sorry if this has been asked before, but overall, how do you feel about Bojta content? Finally got into myself and just unlocked Castrum. Definitely prefer it over Eureka, since I put 3 times the time into Eureka and had less to show for it. But what are your thoughts? So for the most part, I enjoy Bojta on a fundamental level more than Eureka. I think it's easier to hop in and hop out, and for me personally, that's something I quite enjoy, even though I do like to spend countless amounts of hours in the game. Still having that sort of ease of jumping in and out of it makes me feel more comfortable doing so. It's why I've worked on far more relics inside of Bojta. It's why I've done the 1v1s. I go back to do the 1v1s again. I cluster farm. I do castrums. I just like kind of being in there. If I'm like, yeah, you know what? I kind of feel like doing this today. I will say, though, one thing in Eureka I wish was in Bojta. Bunnies. I still go back to Eureka to do the elemental conflicts to make some money off of the buns. I sold an Elder's mount the other week for like 10 million gil, and I still sell the logograms I get from in there for a decent chunk because the people who do BA still do them. BA is also its own special kind of creature. It's not quite like Delubrum Normal or Savage, so I always feel like it's a good fun shakeup of things to jump into a BA group in a Discord occasionally and just do it. I don't really need anything crazy out of it. I can sell some of the stuff that I get from it, and that's all that really ends up mattering. But as for things like Delubrum Savage, I think Delubrum Savage for me is the pinnacle of like the type of content that's come out of these things, because it was so much more challenging than BA, but at the same time it was still very much within my comfort zone of like things I was used to doing, a lot of personal responsibility especially, so that always feels good because I take myself very seriously in personal responsibility in content. And it was just a lot of fun, the music, the environment. It just had I think it has a worse reward structure than BA. I actually think BA is better because there's more reasons to go back and do it. But either way, I really enjoy Bojta. I'm looking forward to the finale, but I can tell you it won't last me 6 months up until Endwalker. So, like I said in the earlier question, we'll be filtering in some other ideas and content grinds along the way. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello and good morning. It's actually afternoon for me right now, but good morning all the same by the time you see this. Longtime fan, first time asker, welcome. I have 2 questions and we'll keep it short-ish and sweet-ish. Let's find out. With the reveal of Reaper, I found myself incredibly excited. It was almost exactly what I was hoping for, imagining after seeing a scythe as a potential weapon. What are your thoughts on the reveal? How does it compare to what you might have hoped? I don't really create too much in the way of expectations. The scythe was pretty much all I was expecting from Reaper. So yeah, I never judge how excited I am on a job based on the 4 or 5 abilities that they show animations of and that little teaser that they do. Like it's exciting and it's visually it's quite appealing, but I always wait until we get to that job action live letter way later down the line, when we've learned a lot more of the ins and outs of the various abilities and how they work together, and also comparing it to the older jobs to see, is this even something I want to play comparatively to some of the older stuff being updated. So I'm always pretty neutral about this stuff, but the scythe being the weapon was what we were predicting, and I'm glad that at the very least that was right. I refused to commit to the whole idea of Reaper being the name, even though it was kind of just like a gimme because Grim Reaper was on all of his shirts. I was like, you know what? I don't feel confident in predicting that. So people who did, good for them. But other than that, I'll be mostly neutral about it until we learn more. I might still level it first, though, just because from a live streaming perspective, from a content creation perspective, that could be a lot of fun to do, regardless of whether or not I plan to main it. So that's at least still something that I'm considering for later down the line. And 2, when Yoshi P announced a release date expansion, he commented on the backdrop being an image of the Scions. This is true for all the characters except Xenos. I've always thought that maybe Xenos could be more of an anti-hero. I had to think back, because we had Emmett Selk on the Shadowbringers one, and I'm pretty sure he also called that a backdrop of the Scions, so I wouldn't take it too seriously. I think it's just that they're highlighting some of the major characters. The more interesting thing is that Fandaniel is not present on that to me, and less so that Xenos is there, since Emmett Selk was on the previous one. So yeah, it doesn't really mean much to me personally. I'm not going to read too much into it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey man, hi, what's up? How you doing? Hope FanFest is not too crazy for it. It was crazy, but in a good way. Easy question, I guess. Do you think the whole evil job restriction is over for future jobs? Because they said that before, and then they gave us a Bloodborne-looking Reaper that channels a Void Sent. So none of the things you said imply that said job is evil. That it has darker themes, no doubt. Similar to Dark Knight, a job can have a darker theme. It can have a more mature theme. That doesn't inherently make its lore evil. This is something that we won't truly understand or have a real answer to until we get later down the line. And we actually learn about the lore through the job quests that we're going to be getting from 70 to 80 and probably at level 90. The fact that it's in Ul'dah is actually quite interesting to me. I have a feeling that the job quest would start relatively close in proximity to the Thaumaturge's guild, given that their history with the Voidsent is definitely not one that I don't feel like a job that channels a Voidsent through them would be particularly in the interest wheelhouse of the Thaumaturge's guild. They may wish to squash that out of existence, if you know what I mean. But it's all about the origin of the job and how it's actually applied, like what this Voidsent is, why we can channel it, how is it damaging to the realm, all those things are questions we really need to answer. But something inherently like raising dead people that have died in the world, would certainly come off as more evil than channeling something from a world that was destroyed from the 13th. So that's really the lines we need to draw and figure out. Really, we just need more information about the job. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, lally ho, and good morning. Hello to you too. As someone who has been thrust into raid leading, I'm trying to get better at callouts. It's not easy doing a rotation while doing the callouts, so I switched to warrior to make it easier. No, that's not a ha. That's a good idea is what it is. Any advice to lead and improve one's ability to call out without resorting to magic programs that know the mechanics? Yeah, I'm a huge not big fan of using any third-party tool in order to do callouts. I think for some people it is very legitimately an assistance. I know there's a lot of people with major issues in terms of focusing and in terms of prolonging attention paying for over the course of an entire raid night. I do understand it for people like that, so I always kind of feel a little bad about my criticisms of systems like that, when there are people who very legitimately, they may not even be able to access raiding without programs like that. But there's plenty of people I know who are fully capable who still use them. So I'm always just like, I don't really like these kind of things. It's honestly a matter of practice. I actually took to the ranged physical role early on in Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, and kind of not on purpose took up that role of being able to do callouts. I found that the ranged physical role allowed me to kind of survey everything that was happening, when a tank was standing in the right place, the wrong place, where the healers were standing, where the DPS were standing. And it also gave me a good visuals on all the mechanics. So that was really how I learned that. And quite frankly, I think that doing callouts is something that benefits from not just playing a job that's easier to do it on, but it's from understanding all the different roles and what timings they have and what information they need to have as well. And you don't want to have to call everything out. You basically want to be able to do a couple of words that summarize what everyone needs to be doing. You don't want to have to call wormhole 1 go here, 2 go here, 3 go here, 4 go here. You don't want to have to do that. You want to be able to say wormhole, check the numbers over your head, and then if somebody looks like they're slightly out of position, you'd be like 3, move over, or something like that. Things that are really light. And it's just a matter of practice from that point on. I think picking a job that you find is a little bit easier to do the rotation is actually a good approach, though. So if warrior is easier for you, I think you're going about this the right way. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Longtime viewer, first-time asker here. Welcome. And thank you for saying hello. FanFest was hype as hell, and I loved every second. I think the thing that threw me for a loop was the announcement of male Viera, female Hrothgar. Trust me, it threw all of... I don't think there's anyone who... There's people who were holding out hope. I don't think there's anyone who seriously was expecting it, I'm super hyped to be the inclusion, but I'm a little concerned over the long-term effects of this, especially when it comes to the creation of new emotes and gear down the line. In your opinion, with your knowledge of game design and how 14 is developed, how do you think the inclusion will affect the release of new gear down the line? With so many unique body shapes and where the development time for new gear and emotes is getting exponentially longer, maybe even to the point where content has to be cut or delayed. So we got some insight into this 2 years ago when we didn't get male Viera. Yoshida himself had said that before including any new races, they needed to optimize workflow on development of exactly these kind of things. And we've actually heard this from Yoshi P a lot as of late, especially after the last year of craziness that we've had, and that it's kind of exposed to them things that they should definitely update and do better so they can make sure that things like this don't get in the way of doing the exact same things that they were doing before. And they said after they had optimized workflow, maybe they would consider male Viera and or female Hrothgar. One can assume that for the most part, they've at least made strides in that, and that this isn't something that we should genuinely be concerned about. Obviously, the only other question is if the workflow is optimized, where are hats, right, for Viera and Hrothgar? So there are still definitely some questions, but given that we got that direct insight as to what would lead them to continue to develop the other genders for these races, we can assume that they've at least made progress in exactly that regard. So we don't actually need to dive into how it might affect Final Fantasy XIV in the future. They're plenty on top of it. Hashtag Mr. Happy FanFest is almost here, but by the time you read this, it already happened Monday. I like it. Hello, Haps. Hope you're doing all right. Hope the same for you. Been a while since my last question. I was quite busy in the last couple of weeks with T-Prog and many BA and DRS runs. But I came with 2 questions today. All right, let's check it out. With Eden's Promise and Delubrum, they introduced the twice and thrice come ruin debuff, which becomes Doom after getting hit the listed number of times. Do you think this might become a recurring mechanic in places like Pandemonium Savage or future 48-man raids to mitigate mechanic cheesing? I think that it's a great way of handling punishment in a certain capacity. So the places that we see it in Eden are really the more stringent places where it's like you can maybe make a mistake, for example, in E10, where you can miss towers, you just can't miss too many of them. Or that if you are doing this wrong, this is how we're going to punish you. It's basically like Light Rampant if it only killed the people who did stuff wrong. Because Light Rampant could very easily have been a twice or thrice come ruin mechanic, but instead it's as soon as somebody goes over that threshold of screwing the whole thing up, everybody explodes, instead of the more domino effect of a twice or thrice come ruin. So I think it's a very healthy way of approaching or informing the player that you've been hit by too many things and that something needs to be adjusted or someone needs to move. I also think that in Delubrum, it's particularly important because Delubrum really doesn't have any raid mechanics. It's got everyone individually needs to do the mechanic that is assigned to them. So like if you have 2 fire debuffs and you need to get the 2 ice debuff from the hot or cold boss, then you need to do that. Nobody else is going to affect how you approach doing that mechanic. So thus punishing you for making a mistake is far more important. Although that's probably a bad example because you will just die outright if you screw up hot and cold. But that same kind of, identity is persistent throughout. So punishing in fights where an individual can make a mistake and kill themselves is great. Using it as a way to inform the player about how many mistakes they made or making one too many mistakes or making any mistakes at all, I think is also a healthy way to use it. But they shouldn't overuse it and just punish you for every single little thing with that permanently like they do in Delubrum. I think it only works in Delubrum for the reason that I gave, and at least in that capacity at the very least. Second question is 5.5. 5 approaches. What are you looking forward to the most from Zadnor? I think this kind of falls into the line of I just want new stuff. I'm looking forward to the duels more than anything. That is absolutely certain. And I'm really looking forward to getting the honors system so I can get ridiculously strong and go back into Delubrum Savage as a monk. I can't wait with fully stacked damage honors to go back into Delubrum Savage and to honestly do the duels with all that power as well. I'm really, really looking forward to that. So those are probably the 2 things I'm looking forward to most. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hope you've recovered well from FanFest and a bonus on some freshly pressed black coffee. Yeah, again, I only have one of those things I bought from where I went to go get my friggin' thing, so trust me, fresh coffee would be a lot better than this. With the hyper on Endwalker and the increased popularity of the game after Shadowbringers, it's increasingly difficult for new players to get into the game. I frequently had friends start the trial and quit within the first 20-30 levels as the starting point is very old school MMO. As the current story arc is ending in 6.0, do you think we'd ever see the option of a new starting area in 7.0 that players that have the option to join the game at the start of the new story and allowing them to play with everyone else? So I'm going to just give you the truthful answer of no. Now, it's not that I don't think they could do it. It's not that I don't think that they would do it. It's that I don't think that they will do it, which I guess means I don't think they would do it, so I don't know why I even said that, and that's kind of against the point. Final Fantasy XIV has always been a game that is built upon itself, if that makes sense, where 2.0 leads to 3.0 leads to 4.0 leads to 5.0 leads to 6.0. Now, just because 6.1 is the beginning of a new chapter doesn't mean that everything that happened before is invalidated. The characters we met before are invalidated. All of that information, all of the lore, all of the world building is still going to remain being important. Now, I do think they will continue to monitor feedback about the early game. The first 20-30 levels, though, that has been largely remedied. I have gone back and played A Realm Reborn since they revamped it, and I had just played it before the revamp before that. And I can tell you that, honestly, if anything, the only thing they really need to shore up in those early levels is really just having more access to more fun skills early on. I think that would go a large way to keeping people interested versus the very limited skills that you have at those levels. The story pacing and the world building, you can skip a thing here or there and watch a few cutscenes and still really know what's going on. As long as you're paying attention through the end of 2.0 and 2.1 and onward, you'll usually be okay. But it's a big thing about the game being so world and story and lore driven. They don't want you to just have to ignore everything that happened before just because you started playing. They want it to be like starting a new Netflix series from season 1. And even if you hear season 1's not all that great, you should definitely watch it before going on to season 2 kind of deal. And then season on and on and on and on. So I think the answer is no. I think the idea of having hundreds of hours to invest is something that they consider a content promise. Like, hey, you start the game, you don't have to wait till max level to start playing the game. We've got hundreds of hours of content for you even before that. And I'll also be the one to say that they don't have to get to max level to play with their friends. Their friends need to be better about playing with the friends that are just starting out. If friends are like, yeah, dude, come on, play the game. It's so great. We could look at this extreme trial and this ultimate. By the way, fuck you. Go do all the leveling on your own. I'm busy doing that shit instead of helping and playing with your friend. That's kind of on the individual. You know what I'm saying? So that maybe we could all be better about that. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Greetings and salutations, Sir Happy. Thank you, and same to you. After watching the FanFest live letter and it now being revealed there are additional near epilogue. Why'd you have to? You know what? I had forgotten that already, and you've. All right. Do you think female Hrothgar will be added to game before we find out your opinion about the Near Raid series? We just might at this rate. Actual question, do you think the separation of Scholar from Summoner and Arcanist is something that's even remotely possible? So I always want to say, so here's the thing. It's never been impossible. It's been about the likelihood of it. There's been a long talk over the years about whether classes in general could be removed. Yoshi himself has acknowledged that it's not something that's impossible to do. There are issues in terms of the world and the lore. These things exist in the world and in the lore. Their quests are in the game. Their quests are requirements for things. And so there's a lot of interwoven systems to classes that connect a lot of them to jobs, basically with all the old classes and jobs, that create a huge technical problem and hill that they need to get over in order to make it happen. Now, we've seen them get over those hills with other things before, so it's never out of the question. And if they ever do remove classes, yes, Summoner and Scholar would be separated in the process. Do I think they would do it before removing classes? No. That I don't think they can do. I think they really need to the system needs to be completely redone from scratch. And I don't think we'll see that anytime soon. So the question specifically being in 6.0, no, I don't think they will. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hey, it's your favorite boat cursing Makoto here with a question for you. Yeah, well, you don't have to worry about cursing my boats anymore. I'm done. What's the most mundane thing you remember from a previous job that you no longer need? I know you worked IT, so there has to be something. Yeah, being SharePoint verified. That information has gone nowhere for me. So, easy answer. SharePoint verification. Why did I say verification? Is this shot already affecting me? SharePoint verification. It would be the easy answer. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy, just one question here. This time. I'm actually getting pretty late into this, so I think we might have to lightning round all the ones after this. I've also had to go past a few that had a lot of text. I've seen people talk about progression here and other places, generally asking for more or better progression. Do you think 14's relationship with progression is antagonistic? Feels like the progression we get every expansion is done out of obligation and would prefer to be closer to like an action game where you select a preset loadout, get your skills as a player tested, rather than an RPG where player skill and character growth and ability is balanced against each other. Progression stuff is often tied to what people consider side content. So I don't think obligation is the word I would give. So first of all, I'm assuming we mean progression in any sense of like, leveling up, obtaining new gear, obtaining new skills, the most basic principles of what would be considered progression. I don't think it's antagonistic or out of obligation. I feel like they want players to determine what is progression to themselves. For some people, any form of progression, getting a new glam is progression to some people in this game. Picking up new stuff inside content, like you said, with Eureka or Bozja or even Palace of the Dead, they essentially want completing the goal to be your progression, and that the gear or character skills or things along the way are things that should be consistent so that you can understand how you're going to achieve said progression once you have these specific skills. Occasionally introducing new things with that side content, like you stated, gives you a renewed sense of progression, but it's still kind of going to fall into that same guideline that is built upon this core system that they have. So I think that it is very much, they want players to pursue whatever they feel is progression, and that they don't want you to feel obligated that you need to progress in a certain way. So that leads to people who really want that forced obligation of progression, the, horizontal gear progression or leveling up after max level. A lot of the Final Fantasy XI systems, I'll be frank, is left wanting, because those systems were mandatory and those gave them reasons to continue to grind out certain aspects of the game or participate in it in a certain way that isn't present here. So I guess my answer really does depend on what you mean, but that's how I'm interpreting the question, and so that's how I'm gonna respond to it for now. All right, I haven't been through the rest of the questions, but I can see there is still quite a bit of there's still like a bunch of stuff I had to skip over, so okay, I'm going to start from the bottom and then work through. I have someone who's really upset about me saying to get your COVID shots, and everyone jumped on that person's throat, so I don't think I need to comment on it. Let's see. Somebody was upset that I didn't like being called Pretty Sir. Guys, I don't like being called that. Get over it. It's my video. It's very, very uncomfortable. Some people don't like to be called pretty or handsome or whatever, especially from a stranger on the internet. I don't want that. So again, I'm going to add this to last week's one. If it upsets you that I don't like being called pretty or handsome or complimented on my physicality when I'm answering questions in a YouTube video, kindly shut the fuck up. That's all I have to say about it. It's super simple. And then so we have one about male Viera and female Hrothgar. That's more game development stuff that people don't understand about when it comes to modders versus client side versus server side and all that. I don't need to get into that again after last week. Let's see more about that. What did you think of the big FanFest announcements? I was super happy. I was really surprised about some of the stuff I don't really care about, like Male Viera and whatnot. Like, stuff that's never going to affect me. Obviously, an Oceania server is not something that I'm not going to play on it, but I'm excited for people who want it, because there are things I'd given up hope about. Like, I was like, these people are always going to be disappointed, and it's good to see that more people are getting what they want out of the game. Let's see. Be coming in hard with the elitism, calling all NA pugs clowns. I didn't call all of them clowns. I said there's a lot of clowns. There's not everyone. Not everyone is a clown. Just there's quite a few of them. Oh man, it's been quite a time. There was another question here about spell effects and the name of the new. I was wondering if you thought that go back and edit the place in the name of the melee DPS look to differentiate itself from Dragoon. Yeah, I don't really know. Again, I don't really know what to expect from Reaper just yet, so I don't really want to comment on it all too much. It's just seeing 4 or 5 animations and a slide that details it doesn't really tell me enough about it. So I really can't add too much more onto that, I suppose. Somebody asked me about tenacity. Yeah, that's pretty dumb. I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, it's on top of a stat squish, I do kind of want them to look at substats, because I don't think they need to be adjusted too much. But critical hit being way too strong as it is, and also just some of the other stats like tenacity, for example, just feeling so forgotten. Just it feels like there has to be an answer to that, right? So I want them to look deeper into that, because tenacity and Piety and Direct Hit do pretty well. Direct Hit does so well that tanks and healers use it. I don't know if that's going to survive going into the expansion, but yeah, Tenacity, even Determination is in kind of a weird spot where it's just kind of like the most basic, like, hey, this is going to make me stronger existing substat is also another weird one. So I kind of hope that they look into that a little bit more. There was a follow-up on the Shikuchi thing from last week. My answer still remains the same. Ninja has arguably one of the best movement skills in the game, and the fact that you can macro it to make it a gap closer, it doesn't really change my answer from last week. So I don't have anything else to add to that. Some discussion about the healing requirements from last week. Yeah, I mean, there are casual healers who can definitely handle an increase in healing output, but I've also experienced a lot of them that can't. So we already have an issue. I think my answer just remains consistent from last week regarding that comment about the idea of them raising the amount of required healing across the game, probably alienating more people than helping people. It'll satiates the people who are looking for that kind of thing, but it alienates people who are kind of okay with status quo for the time being. So it's one of those pros cons things, and whether or not one is better than the other, I really am not in liberty to dictate or to judge. I had a hard time reading one of these questions because there was like parentheses. It's just maybe my brain is just not functioning correctly, but it was it starts with an hola and then relying on focus of large scale. So it was about alienating people who want small scale, more difficult content while focusing on large scale, because large scale stuff is more difficult to coordinate, but small scale stuff has an issue in terms of individual responsibility and balancing the jobs. I've brought that up a lot in like recent weeks, so it feels redundant for me to kind of answer it, but it's really just a matter of actually somebody posted a comment here that pretty much says exactly what I would say. A smaller scale content puts more pressure on each individual. It often brings up a healer's death inevitably causes a wipe, or that you would need certain jobs like red mages. People wouldn't take anything but them just to make up for mistakes like that. And the difficulty of organization. The problem is that we see there is organization for BA, for Delubrum. So while individual groups might not be able to do it, the larger grand community has set up those organizational skills that makes them possible to do and to get into as a new player. So I think that's a big reason why we see that not really be a consideration, but the difficulty of organizing that many people. I do think they went a little overboard with Delubrum and making it 48 mandatory. I think the way they have it now, where it's 24 to 48, really was the superior idea. And I hope they kind of go with that going forward. They might keep it to 48, like in the next one, they might keep it to 48 at launch because they really want that consistency of organizing it, but I don't think they should keep it that long. I think maybe they held on to that raid size just a little bit too long. Comment about pet AI. After seeing the Reaper reveal, I'm less confident about the stuff that I said about them taking away the summons and making them part of the attacks, because I think it's too similar to Reaper now. Now, some people think that it's more likely now that they've seen Reaper, since it kind of uses a system like that, or we perceive it as a system that's being used like that. But I'm less confident on what I have been saying about Summoner and Scholar. After seeing that, I think that at the very least they might remove auto attacks from the pets to improve their responsiveness, but I think they need to do more than that. But I'm more in the boat that pets will stay kind of this similar-ish to the way that they're used now. At least, let's just go with that. There was somebody who was asking about, they said they had a thought. They plan to use the theme of Amarot for Seed of Sacrifice from the beginning. So Sogen is actually, first of all, God bless that man with the news that came out with him. I learned that right as I woke up after FanFest. That was a difficult thing to say. But second of all, he's really good with lay motifs. Like, he loves to take something and make it not just a theme in the game, but a core theme for all of the things that kind of surround it. Like, we've seen that with Insatiable, with Shadowbringers, the theme, and the expansion as a whole. But even going back to Heavensward, when you step into like Korthus Western or Ishgard or the zones, you this lay motif that's being used repeatedly. Same with Stormblood areas. Even the Stormblood theme itself plays off lay motifs from both Alamigo and Doma. So he's really, really good about telling an interconnected story with the themes. So whether or not he always planned for that, I have to say that's a difficult question to answer, but I have a feeling that it was a no-brainer given the story of 5.0 to 5.3 that it would play as a major leitmotif or a major theme for that. So I have a hard time imagining it going any other way, personally. There was somebody with a question about a stat squish, about whether they'll take the opportunity to change item level requirements. No, because they're still probably going to be roughly the same in terms of what they expect from you at different levels gear-wise. So I just don't think that that's going to cause them to adjust anything in regards to minimum item levels or required item levels for different content. There was a super long one about color blindness. It does have a TLDR. General skills of the player base getting much worse after the introduction of very easy mode and trust is negatively impacting the experience of other players and group content. I don't think they are. I think I see that you've tried to include a lot of I guess data using XIV analysis. Here's the thing. People who want to play well will always strive to play better. People who don't won't. It doesn't matter what tools you give them. Doesn't matter what tools you make available in-game versus what people create out of game. People who care will care, and people who won't. I don't think trusts have negatively impacted anything at all. And I think that I'm glad that I didn't read this. I don't think I just, and like you included like screenshots of people without their names. Those people, the thing is, I don't even need to click those, because if those people are being arrogant or ignorant about player skill or performing in a certain way, it doesn't matter. That's those people. They're always going to be that way. Doesn't matter at all what they put in the game or don't have in the game. That's just how those people are going to be. It's why there's sometimes where you see people saying things in like a dungeon or in shout chat, and you're like, I don't even want to be involved, because this ideology that the person has is so far from the way Final Fantasy XIV is played at a minimum level. I was gonna say middle to high level, no, at a minimum level. That this is a discussion that in no way ends in either party being content with the situation. So just separate myself from it entirely. Someone said about adding topics to Mondays with Mr. Happy. I think we did that for a little while, and it got a little too tedious to maintain. Especially because I don't plan all these things, and I honestly barely even remember the questions after I finish the weekly Q&A. Most of the time, the next week's questions, referring to last week's questions, are the things that remind me. So most of the time, it just comes down to being too tedious to do. So the answer is probably no. Besides, it's that way people don't skip around. They gotta watch the whole thing if they want questions. I don't want people just looking for the answer to their questions and then not watching the rest of the video. I want them to enjoy the whole thing, and then they look for their question when it's there. So that's probably not going to happen. And I can tell you, this week especially, that's definitely not happening. That's definitely a thing. Somebody asked me if they'll ever see more things from Final Fantasy XI, like they said, ninja quadruple attacks, fishers fishing up notorious monsters. No. This isn't Final Fantasy XI. You're just not going to see those things, ever. Honestly, Bunshin is the closest thing you'll see to a ninja landing a quadruple attack. So I would take that in stride and enjoy it for what it is. Let's see. Is there anything else that I need to do? There was a call-out question, the evil job restriction. How do I feel about Bozja cooking? Somebody actually did ask a question about Athene. So it's interesting because I answered the other question about and mentioned Athene before I had actually seen this question, but that's why I ended up saving it for the lightning round. Yeah, I mean, obviously I know there's been a whole lot of controversial topics with that man over the years, but in my experience with him, he was nothing but respectful and did his best to put his best foot forward. The methods that he had, of course, are always difficult with people to agree with, using a controversial character within his own scope of things to achieve the ends to which he achieved. But at the same time, I mean, I can tell you from my personal experiences with him that he was nothing but awesome. So as much as people have certain perceptions of what he may or may not have done or rumors or whatnot, it's the experiences that are explained in the mini documentary, which ends up becoming essentially a trailer for a mobile game by the end of it all, the Clash of Streamers, that I largely concur with the positive outlooks that they had in the conversations that I had with him and the people that he surrounds himself with. So that's definitely something. It always annoyed me over the years to see people saying things about him that were just random thoughts or rumors that they were throwing around that got a lot of traction, because it was never something I agreed with or saw whenever I was in contact with him. There's someone who asked if making Balam quits as maybe my brain's just not working properly. I don't know what that is. It's probably something I know what it is. I just don't remember it off the top of my head right now. So I'm going to say no, because I don't know what it is. So that's all I got for that. There's the Bloomage question. The music questions, Monday again. The content creation question, male Vieira here, collectible hairstyles. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. What's left on your pre-Endwalker task list? Soken doing the vocals. The House of Clowns Netflix documentary featuring Mr. Happy. Listen, I've been in some party finders, man. I've been in a party finder with a black mage who was doing 6k DPS and then complaining that the boss was dying too slow in Eden, and it's like, dude, it can be a real house clown. Honestly, I think I brought it up last week, but my favorite is always somebody posts a macro. It says positions. It's got tank 1. It's got main tank. It's got second tank. It's got healer 1, healer 2, 4 DPS spots. It looks beautiful. And then the tank calls the H1 position. And I'm like, oh my god, this is why NA can't use macros. We're doomed. We're so doomed. Please make macros more normal. It's so good. It's so much better than what we do in North America. Please. Okay. And with that, that's going to be the wrap up for this week's Q&A. I'm going to get to chugging more of these liquids, and I actually have only had like a banana today for food, so I should probably go eat something as well. So thank you everyone for tuning into this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And if you have a question, throw it in the comment section of the video below. And be on the lookout for the content throughout the week. The same stuff that we mentioned at the start of the video itself. So thank you all for watching. I will see you all in the next one. And until then, take care.